Lou Christie, welcome, and I'm very happy to talk to you.
Thank you.
And it's good to see that you are still active. You never really have stopped recording, have you?
Well, I did stop for, I guess, about 5 years when my little girl was born, and then I just spent time sort of watching this child grow.
Yeah.
And I came off the road, and then I was living in England also for the time, most of the time.
Now, while you were overseas, did you do any performing?
I did, yes, for the first couple of years I did. As a matter of fact, I was on the road quite a bit, and doing different countries also. I was based out of London, but I did, like Spain and France and Germany and Holland and places like that.
Did you find that they were familiar with your music, Lou?
Yes, as a matter of fact, they were. And matter of fact, some of the songs that were never hits over here or were never released over here were released in other countries. So I had almost a totally different kind of career over in Europe.
Well, I think that's very interesting. We find through the years that the people in England especially, and now it's picked up in Germany and France, are much more familiar with our music of the past. They have kept better tabs with it than we have over here.
Yeah, in many cases they have.
And
real fans.
Right, they certainly are, and it's great to have that. You are going to be appearing up at Melody Fair on September 17th with a review.
Oh, sure.
And we're looking forward to that. That should be excellent. I think that shows of that nature have done well here in Rochester also, and this is actually giving the Rochesterians a chance to get up to Melody Fair. And
what was that one?
Rochesterians.
That's the way you say it, huh?
That's it. It comes out very strange, doesn't it?
Right. Sounds like a new group.
Right.
Or a new kind of music.
That's for sure. Who are some of the others appearing on that bill with you?
Well, Bobby B's going to be there, Fabian, and Belmonts, and Leslie Gore is going to be there also. Leslie and I have been performing quite a bit together, and so we'll be doing something together.
She's a very talented young lady. Also, she's into songwriting now.
Yeah, she and I have been doing some work in different areas, too, so...
Oh, that's great. Well, your collaborations of the 60s were with a young lady. Twyla Herbert was her name?
Sure, yes, Twyla.
Have you kept in contact with her in any way?
Yes. Oh, yes. As a matter of fact, I dreamt of her last night. Lying here thinking. And we've written some new things, too, that hopefully, we'll be putting down soon.
Well, that's great. Was she a childhood friend or somebody that you knew that just happened to be into music? How did you both started very young?
Dear. Yes, I was working at my father's pizza house and saw this sort of red-headed woman get off the bus and was very theatrical, and somehow we struck up a conversation, and it ended up where we started writing songs together.
Well, that's great.
And it was fantastic times we had, in the early days when we first started out. We were both so innocent and just enjoyed that kind of, the challenge was unbelievable.
Well, that's great. And the thing that I found very interesting, you both utilized or wrote specifically for your voice. Your voice was there
right.
and popular before Frankie Valli's voice.
Yep. Yep.
Frankie had been doing things for many years, but you hit first, and it seemed very interesting.
Mm-hmm. It's true, and being being the writer, I find that there are very few cover records on my songs. write something like a Tie Yellow Ribbon, well, anyone can record it.
Sure.
But my music is very hard. You know, I mean, people can't sing it.
Yeah, which is actually unfortunate for you.
Yeah, in many ways, as a writer, yeah.
Right,
True.
right. They were unique songs, starting right with the Gypsy Cried and so forth. Now, I have some things, I've picked up some albums here and there, and I've been fortunate enough to get some of the early things that you did with the classics, Close Your Eyes and some of that music. And that, of course, was not commercially successful, but you were successful starting in 63 with the Gypsy Cried, and picked up by a label that was very active at the time, Roulette Records.
Yeah.
Now, I've got a personal question, I guess this would be. How is it that you were with so many different labels through the 60s? I mean, that's quite a few labels to be with. I guess it was, Roulette and MGM, and the original was C&C, which was locally Pennsylvania.
Right, out of Pittsburgh.
Okay, and then Colpix, Columbia, Buddha Records you ended up the decade with, and also somewhere in the middle was a label that I remember that probably was an extension of C&C, the one that was CO and CO.
Yes, that was a reissue.
Uh-huh.
Whereas that was cut, I think, around 64.
I see.
Outside the Gates of Heaven. And I think they reissued a couple other things, too, so it was the same people. You know, C&C was C and Co and C.
Right.
So,
now, how did you happen to move on so rapidly from...
That's just what happened. I mean, you know, in those days, companies weren't somehow as big business as they are today. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was music more than business, almost, in a way. Now it's business and music. I mean,
Right. Now, in 67, you landed with the big label, Columbia Records.
Yeah.
And they didn't seem to promote you the way you would think they would have. You had a nice track record, some top 10 records, a number 1 record. You would have thought that they would really go into some promotion for you. Did they not promote you, or what was the story there?
Well, what happened is that the people who signed me were no longer associated with the company, and then there was some disagreements with the person who brought me there, Charlie Colella, who did a lot of my records in the early days and was my arranger and that. And then he was fired because he had an argument with the head of the company, and in turn it affected my relationship with them because he was the one that brought me in. You know, it was always like a third party problem. You know, and at that point I think I left the company because it just, and they paid me like a lot of money, and and then they just didn't put that effort behind that I needed. And then with that, Charlie Colella was also managed by the same person that was managing me, and then he just pulled us both from the label.
That's unfortunate. Of course, it's interesting to hear, and I guess I was not aware that Charlie Colella was your producer, but it is interesting because he was also, during many of those years, producing Frankie Valli, a quite similar voice.
Yes, he did produce Frankie for a while. Charlie was basically my arranger for, I guess from about 64, we did an album together on Colpix.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think I was one of the first to use Charlie, as a matter of fact. Real talented guy.
Yeah, very active. And of course, Columbia had to regret their decision, obviously, because in 69 you had another top 10 record, I'm Gonna Make You Mine.
Yeah.
And that was once again a driving record with your voice utilized till its fullest extent. That's really one of my favorites that you've done. You've done so many unique records, and I think that's what separates you from other artists that have just done what I call common material. Yours certainly is not common. It's excellent.
Thank you. I'm glad you picked up on that, because I just feel that, I mean, if I'm going to do a record, I want to do something unique, a little different. You know, I never was a homogenized sort of person, or, you know, I mean, even on stage, whatever I wear and the way I present myself, I don't know. I think you have to. I don't even think about you have to be unique, but I just think I feel I have to be unique.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, there's another artist that in the 70s plucked back and got some older material, a voice similar to yours, Robert John. Are you against doing that type of thing?
There's so many good things, really, that I've done one right now. As a matter of fact, I just come out of the studio with one. I'd like it, but I wouldn't like to build a whole career around it, you know.
Right, right.
I'm sure, again, it would have to be something unique from another angle, whether it be a girl song and me doing it, or, you know, a group song where I'm doing all the parts, or something that would just make it more interesting.
Mm-hmm. Your records are, by the way, very collectible. I don't know if you're aware of that. Your 45s, as well as certain albums that you have done, are very sought after by collectors, and for a 45 as recent as 10 or 15 years, they really command a pretty good price. I don't know if you've seen any of the Osborne price guides, but if you have a lot of those stashed away, as most artists don't, unfortunately,
you got it.
They are very collectible, even as recent as the things that you did for Three Brothers. Those are sought after also.
I understand. Yeah, I know. I see them periodically in these magazines, and a lot of every time I meet someone who is a collector, they ask me, I'll buy whatever I have, and can I, but it's amazing to see that some things are going for like $50.
Oh, I know. It's really something. Also, I noticed in the period of somewhere around 76 or 77, I was working in the various discos occasionally, and I think it was Pyramid Records where I noticed your name on certain things. I'm not quite sure, but I know that I saw your name as doing some background and some arranging there.
Well, I did a record where I sang 6 voices on, and it was called "Don't Keep It in the Shadows."
Right. Was that...
that was me.
Do you remember what label that was? Was that Pyramid?
Pyramid.
Yeah. And I thought...
D.C. LaRue.
Right, that's what it was, D.C. LaRue, right. And I remember getting that and taking it down there and playing it for the kids, and they loved it. How did that record do?
Very well. It was a 12-inch, and it was
right.
It was #1 in the discos here in New York City.
Super. But you have stopped doing that?
Yes, I did. I did it for him. It was a friend of mine I've known for years, and he always wanted me to sing with him and sing on his records, when he finally got a contract, and so I did it for him, and the record was very big. Like I said, it was #1 in the disco.
Great.
And I did that. Then I wrote a couple other things with him on a couple of his other albums.
Uh-huh.
Where I kept screaming in the middle of the night was one of them. And and I did another guest performance on his album called Star Baby, the last album. I think it was I don't know if it was Casablanca at that point or Pyramid. And but periodically I'll go in and do a appearance with some artists.
Now, you mentioned Casablanca, and earlier you're with Buddha. Was Neil Bogart involved both of those times?
Yes, he was.
Yeah, well, he was quite talented in finding good artists and putting them to use.
Yeah, Neil had a very good ear, very commercial ear.
Right. Are you? You mentioned that you've just come out of the studio. Do you have a contract? Are you looking for something? Is it something that you're taking to people to listen to, or do you have something going?
I'm getting interest from so many different areas. It's funny because a lot of the new wave producers and new wave bands, a lot of them were raised on my records. And so I'm getting feelers just from everyone. I had a guy last night call me from the coast, and he's another one who wants to produce me, and then I'm just meeting people every other day that want to get involved and do something, production, and just get involved in my career, But I just want to make sure that the decision is right, and I have to, feel out the person to make sure it all feels right, and he knows musically where I want to go.
Right.
If I really want to involve someone else, or so I'm just getting my feet wet again, dabbling with the industry again. So it's going to be something soon. I'm going to make a few decisions here soon. So you'll be hearing me on the old plastic again.
Great. Well, it sounds very positive, and a collaboration. I wouldn't think that a collaboration with Leslie Gore could hurt you. Put it that way.
No.
And she obviously has some proper contacts because she is kept in touch through her writing. And, the very best to you. We're looking forward to hearing from you again.
Thank you. I'm really excited about, getting back into it, too, and because I know there's so many people out there, and I've been meeting this time around that have been really wonderful fans and, friends all around the country, so...
Right. Well, you've got that kind of voice that can capture a sound and doesn't, you don't just necessarily have to do oldies. You come up with the right material, and I know that it's going to be unique once again, as all your music has been in the past.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lou, for talking to us.
Okay.
Appreciate it.